There are homes that once felt like places you could return to without a second thought. You knew the way the light streamed through the window at dusk. You knew exactly where your cup should go. You could hear the familiar sound of footsteps across the tiled floor. But then one day you find yourself sitting in the same chair, and yet it feels like you're in the wrong place. Your words go unheard. Darn, the eyes of those around you meet more often with each other than with you. No one tells you to leave, but your heart quietly begins to withdraw. When we were younger, we used to think, as long as it's a family home, it doesn't matter where I go. But as we grow older, we begin to realize that getting older isn't just about the body. It's about feeling like you're no longer part of the shared energy of the place. And at that moment, what we needed isn't just a seat. We need a space where we don't have to shrink ourselves to simply exist. This isn't a video meant to blame anyone. It's just a quiet reflection. After all these years, love yourself enough to choose a space where your heart doesn't feel the need to retreat. If you've ever left a house feeling like you've become a stranger in it, then maybe you'll understand what I'm about to say. Let's begin. The first house, where older adults should avoid, is the one where they unknowingly hurt themselves by being unheard. It's the type of place where you feel like you're waiting for your turn to speak. No one stops you, but your words are constantly interrupted or fall into silence, as if they were never spoken at all. Have you ever been in a house where you had to ask for permission just to finish a sentence? Not because someone stopped you, but because you can feel that if you take too long, you'll be interrupted. Dad, you've told that story before. Mom, we already know that. Or maybe it's the distracted gaze from across the room, like you're talking to yourself. At 70, people don't need a stage. They just need a place where they can be heard without feeling like they're bothering anyone. But sadly, as we grow older, the space to speak freely becomes scarcer. There are meals where the elderly contribute laughter, but no one asks them anything in return. Research from the American Geriatrics Institute shows that over 67% of people over 65 feel ignored in family conversations. It's not that they're saying anything wrong, it's that others assume they no longer have anything valuable to say. That silence, when it stretches on, can contribute to depression and social isolation in older adults. Mrs. Helen, 74, from Boston shared, "I visit my daughter's house every week. I bring cakes and tell little stories. But slowly I stopped telling them. Before I could finish, the kids would already move on to something else. Every time I leave, I feel like a guest, not family." When an elderly person feels unheard, or they start to stop wanting to speak. And when they stop wanting to speak, they stop wanting to come. So if you live with elderly parents or loved ones, sometimes the simplest way to keep them around longer is to let them finish their sentences. No interruptions, no brushing them aside. Just look them in the eye and gently say, "Mom, go ahead, I'm listening." That small phrase carries so much weight for an older person, because if a home makes you feel like you have to ask for permission to speak, maybe your heart has already left that place before your feet. At some point, you start to carefully choose your words before you speak, not out of fear of saying something wrong, but because you know everything you say is easily misunderstood. Have you ever sat in a room full of people, yet felt completely invisible? They're not loud, they're not intrusive, but it's the silence around you, the lack of attention, that makes you feel like you don't exist at all. Not rude, but quietly cold. And sometimes that coldness hurts more than a harsh word. For older adults, silence in a home isn't always peaceful. There are silences filled with warmth, moments when you sit together, hear the comforting sound of water boiling, and someone gently asks, "Would you like some tea, Mom?" But there are also silences that feel like emptiness, where every sound is distant, disconnected, and the gaze no longer lingers on you. Research from the National Institute on Aging shows that older adults living in environments where they are present but not connected are 3 times more likely to experience depression compared to those who live alone but have meaningful social interactions. This means that being physically close to loved ones but emotionally detached can be more draining than being alone. Mrs. Doris, 74, from Phoenix, shared that she used to have dinner every week with her daughter and grandchildren. But in recent months, she began to decline the invitations. I'm a little tired. Let's do it next week. It wasn't that she was busy, it was because when she arrived, everyone was glued to their phones. No one asked her a complete question. If she made a suggestion, all she got in return was a frown and a dismissive, "Mom, just let me handle it." She understood that she wasn't hated, but she wasn't truly needed either. And that made her, though invited, feel like a guest who shouldn't stay too long. If you keep visiting places like this, your soul will start to shrink. Not because anyone hates you, but because there's no one who genuinely listens. Sometimes you don't need to be chased away. You just need to stop visiting, not to isolate yourself, but to protect what warmth is left. If a home makes you withdraw, filled with sighs and unfinished conversations, give yourself the right to choose somewhere else. A place where eyes stop when you walk in. Not every home can hold a heart if it no longer has a voice that truly listens. Silence doesn't kill, but it can kill the feeling of truly existing. And sometimes it's not the house itself that tires you, it's the rhythm of life within it. Each hour that passes, you feel like you're trying to keep up with something that no longer belongs to you. Have you ever stepped into a house and just 10 minutes later found yourself checking the clock? Not because anyone dislikes you or because something bad happened. It's just that the atmosphere in the house makes you feel unnecessary. And oh, mom's here from the kitchen, a vacant chair with no one offering to pull it out for you, a meal where you're present, but no one asks, "Mom, is this okay for you?" You sit there quiet, and then you start thinking about how to leave so no one feels sorry. In reality, no one in the house is intentionally making you sad. But the coldness of indifference, sometimes it hurts deeper than sharp words. A 20 study from the National Institute on Aging found that the feeling of being ignored in familiar places is one of the most common causes of withdrawal, mild depression, and social disengagement in people over 65. They don't withdraw because they want to. It's simply because they no longer feel like they have a reason to stay. Mrs. Margaret, 72, from Dallas, shared, "I went to my daughter's house with some homemade cakes, but when I arrived, the door was ajar and no one came out to greet me. My grandchild was glued to the screen. My daughter shouted from the kitchen, 'Mom, just sit and relax, I'm in a meeting.' I sat there for exactly 26 minutes. No one asked anything. No one poured me a drink. I got up, softly said, 'Okay, I'll head home now.' And from then on, I never went back." The few visits that used to happen became even less frequent. By the time I stopped going, the distance wasn't measured in kilometers anymore. It was measured in the desire to stay. So how do we ensure that homes don't become places older adults feel they want to leave? Sometimes it's the smallest gestures, pulling out a chair, warming the teapot, making eye contact when they walk in. It's not about doing something grand. It's about making them feel like they matter in the atmosphere of the home. Because older adults don't need to be forced to stay. They just need to feel that they haven't been forgotten. Sometimes it's not mistreatment that drives us away from a place. It's the constant feeling of having to be cautious, trying not to disturb anyone. There are homes where you're not rejected, but you're no longer welcomed. And that feeling, it's not something that shouts, but it quietly makes the heart grow cold. Older adults aren't afraid of distance. They're not reluctant to travel. What makes them hesitate is the shift in how they're looked at. A place that used to feel warm and familiar now seems welcoming only for others, not them anymore. Social psychology refers to this as social displacement, the feeling of being replaced in a space once familiar. According to the American Psychological Association, APA, older adults are especially vulnerable when they lose their emotional role in relationships that once provided support. The emptiness doesn't come from being disliked, but from no longer being an essential part of the family's shared memory. Take Mrs. Martha, 72, from Seattle. She was once the main cook every Thanksgiving, but that year her daughter told her, "Mom, you can come early, but I've already cleaned up the kitchen." When Martha arrived, she stood by the door and saw the table set, laughter filling the air. But there was no place for her. Throughout dinner, she only helped with the glass and reminded the kids to sit up straight. When she left, she said, "I left like a guest at someone else's house, though the tablecloth was made by me years ago." When the feeling of being unnecessary lingers long enough, it creates a silent, deep distance. Older adults won't complain. They won't get angry. They simply won't come back. And sometimes all it takes is a small gesture, a timely invitation like, "Mom, sit here, Mom. Could you make this dish for me?" These words, just enough to preserve a part of their role, a part of the memory, are enough to keep the house home, not just a place to come and go. Because no one leaves because they're chased away. People leave when they feel they're no longer worth keeping. After a certain age, we no longer need loud, bustling spaces filled with constant chatter. We just need places where we don't feel out of place sitting among a family. And sometimes the best choice for our peace of mind is to not return to places that no longer need our presence. Choose to stay where the gaze softens when we speak. Choose to visit places where our silence isn't mistaken for weakness. And choose to leave when our hearts feel the time to go, counting the minutes until we can step out. You're not selfish when you step back from a gathering where your voice isn't heard. You're not being difficult when you just want to finish a sentence without being interrupted. You're simply learning to love yourself again. After a lifetime of enduring for the sake of harmony. If something in your heart resonates with us today, hold on to it as a gentle reminder for the future. And if you've ever walked out of a home feeling like you left without anyone noticing you had arrived, feel free to share your story. Maybe someone else needs to hear it to step out courageously for the first time. And if you think this message should reach more people, leave a like or subscribe. Let's make sure that when someone watches this video, they know they're not alone. Thank you for staying until the end. I hope that in the future you'll walk through a door and feel welcomed by a gaze, not just politeness.